Hi, I'm TJ Tollakson, professional triathlete and CEO of Dimond Bikes. Today we are going to talk about the installation of the Red Crown Cycling Monarch Aerobar. So, first thing we're going to do is talk about everything that comes in the package. So, here's what the package of the Aerobar entails. You've got your base bar. You've got a pack that's going to be packed just like this that has the base plate and extenders in it. You will have extensions. Those are 51 speed ski extensions. A extra wide pad bracket, so 2 of those will be included as well. So if you need to lengthen the width of your Aerobar pads, you get that. The pad holders and the pads themselves, those come in a set. Bar end plugs for your bars. A stack of spacers. So this is max height here, but it comes with a 30, a 20, a 10, and a 5. So that is a maximum riser height of 65 millimeters. So you get a stack of 65 millimeters on top of the bar, so you can able to use all of those. And then the big thing with these is make sure that you're using the right size bolts. So it comes with all these bolts: 25, 35, 45, 55, 65, 75, and 85. 85 being what you need, obviously, if you use the full 65 millimeter spacers on here. It's really important you have the right bolt lengths, because if you don't, what will happen is they will bottom out if they're too long, or they won't attach if they're too short. Disaster will entail, so please make sure you use the right bolts to correspond with this. And so you can probably understand, if you use just 5 millimeters, you're going to use these short 25 millimeters. If you go up to 10 millimeters, these 30, 40, 50, 60, 65. That should make sense, be pretty intuitive to people. The last thing is this spacer, which is specific to the Dimond bike. So if you actually buy the Red Crown Aerobar as part of your Dimond bike, you'll probably get 8 of these spacers included as well. So that can go on over the headset cap. You can use this to kind of set the headset in place right there. But it's got a nice mate with the fork cover. Looks really nice. You can use that in place of the fork cover, but you got to do some modifications to your bike when you do that. So we're going to start with that. What tools are you going to need to assemble this before we get started here? What tools are you going to need? But you're going to need a set of nice bike Allen keys. Some people will use a Y wrench. You could use a multi-tool set like this. I got some nice park tools right here. I've got a 6, a 5, a 4, a 3, and a 2.5. You won't need anything besides that to adjust your Aerobar, so that's all I have right now. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the base bar, because that goes right over that spacer, and we're just going to slide this on over the steer tube. Keep in mind that if I was actually doing this install for the final say, I would need to cut the steer tube, but you don't want to do that until you have it measured. So always remember that. Measure twice, cut once. Otherwise you're going to have disaster, because if you cut this too short, there's no turning back. So this is a tough one, because this serves as the top cap too, so you need to cut this slightly under where it's actually going to be, so you can compress the bearings on this. So we're not going to cut it right now. I'm just going to go through the installation process. But once I have that on there, then I can open up my pack here. We can look at my tower. This is the tower that sits right on top of here. So it actually has bolts that come down and bolt straight on there, and this is how your Aerobar is attached. So this is a fairly complete assembly right now. But to start out with, I'm going to remove this little cover with a 3 millimeter Allen wrench. And again, this is strictly a cosmetic cover for the Aerobar. But once you remove that, you will see you have the spacers in play. And so, because I'm not going to install any risers on top, alright, so I'm going to take this piece, I'm going to loosen these top bolts on here with the 5 millimeter Allen wrench first, so I can get this plate on the bottom to just drop down a tiny bit. This is what I'm actually going to use to install this here, but this is also, these bolts also help you angle the aero bar up. So there are rib nuts in the aero bar, threaded inserts inside the carbon that this will attach to first. This little bolt in front I'm going to take off is a little 3mm hex key. And that is for one more accessory that I didn't talk about that comes in the package, which is a BTA mount. So that is able to mount off the front of the aero bar. So you can mount a bottle on there, or you can mount a computer on there. It's a cool little accessory to put on the front, but it does have water bottle spacing on it to install your water bottle there. So that's a little cool accessory to put on there. Again, this is just a cosmetic cover that goes over where the bolts are. And again, we can mount the base bar in here, and I'll go over what it looks like to put the stack on. So this is in the lowest position that we have right now. If I want to remove this and add some stack, I'll simply take these off, loosen these bolts just a tiny bit so I don't have to remove them all the way. And that allows me to actually get the tilt on the bar. Okay, so once I have that, I can fully take this tower out. So this is the Mono Riser Tower. What's the name? Monarch bar. Oh, don't drop your wrench. Probably won't be the last time I do that. You can see that I can then lift this whole piece out. And if I want to open this up, I can stick all of these on here just as they are and get my max tower space on the bar as well. And so when I do this, I actually want to put these bars in here. So I want to put the largest one on the bottom, the smallest one on the top. That's going to be the most stable solution. So that's full stack on these right here. So remember, if I'm going to use the full stack, I'm also going to need these 85mm bolts. Come in the package with that label. I'm going to pop out these short little 25mm that I put in there. And I'm going to do this. You can see each one of these spacers is actually recessed. So you can see the difference between the two of them. The nubs need to go up because they are made to fit inside. They're nesting, so they fit inside each other. You can line those up. Drop those babies in there, and then we'll tighten it, and then we'll go over how the tilt works on this bar. So, same thing, I'm just going to tighten these down. You don't ever want to over tighten one bolt before you have the other one tightened. You can bind, you can strip. So, we'll have to revisit this to tighten it. Those should be tightened to about 4 Nm of torque. Once this is there, now you can see the actual tilt on the bar a little bit easier, and it's hard with the extensions not there, but you can see how if I tighten these bolts down, it actually will tilt. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten these with the 5mm wrench in the highest tilt position so you can see what that looks like. Okay, so this is our highest tilt position. Our tallest stack of spacers. We already have these pad extenders on them, but remember I said they come with these longer ones as well. So you can see how much longer these pad extenders are than here. So you can get quite a bit more width adjustment if you wanted to take those off and install those. The next thing we're actually going to do is we're going to put the extensions in. The last thing we're going to do is put the pads. So I have these 51 speed shop extensions, straight ski bends. I'm just going to thread these in here. Let's say you want it really, really long. These are labeled and they have a center line on them. So you can get this out there and you can see how high. Let's turn them in slightly like this. We like our hands kind of in and high. You can see how high those bars get. And this is a 4mm wrench that I'm going to use here. And once I have them lined up exactly as I want them, I'm just going to torque these down to tight. And I can use 4 Nm as my guideline. Okay, Once those are in, I do have my plugs for the back. So these are bar end plugs. So these go in the back of the extensions as they pop out here. So you can make sure that they're fully plugged. And the cable exits are in those plugs as well. So it's easy to run the cable straight through those. I have my cover that I can place back on top now that the bars and extensions are on. That's a 3mm again, so I'm going to stick that cover back on. And I'm going to stick these pads on. So these are reversible, so you can go forward or backwards. They're made so the high edge goes towards the outside, but obviously if you flip them around, you can put the high edge on the outside and put them more, you can put them further or closer to you as an athlete. So we're gonna stick them like this right now. We'll install those. Inside your pack of Aerobar spacers, you'll have 4 little bolts that use a 3mm bolt, and so that's what you use to actually attach these. So we get these orientated exactly how we want them. Each pad will use 2 of these bolts. So we will find again the right spacing that we want to use. So obviously it's fairly easy to adjust. So if you mess up, you can do it over again, but try to find the right one. Each of these bolts has thread lock in it, so you can get a nice tight fit. There's so many choices here that even if you wanted to say angle them in or angle them out, you should be able to accommodate most of your requests. I'm just going to install them straight. You can see the bars moving around while I'm doing this. It's because I don't have it tight around the stem, and that's actually the last thing I want to do. So it's fine to have the bar loose while I'm setting it up. So once I have the pads in there, you can see they actually have these Velcro pads. They're real easy to place on there. So I'm just going to stick them on. Those guys are pretty good. They're set right now. And then the last thing that I need to do now is tighten this bar. So most of the time you're going to have a headset like this. And the headset goes in your steer tube, and this needs to be cut so it's slightly below the top of the bar, so it goes in there. But then once it's on, you'll actually have this top plate, and this is part, when you get your bar, this will be attached to your base bar. It's got a couple of 2.5mm screws that attach it, and it's not actually going to fit on here in its lowest position, so I'm going to bring this up so we can actually see what the install process looks like, right? So I have this up to the top part, and I'm going to take a 4mm, maybe a 5mm, 4mm. I'm going to tighten these pinch bolts on the side. And these have a torque spec of 5.2 Newton meters, so you're going to want to torque those down nice and tight with your bar straight. So obviously imagine your steer tube's cut, that would be slammed down. So now we can get this top cover on here. And what's cool about this top cover is it actually has a space for your Di2A junction to go inside. So this little Di2A junction actually mounts inside of here. So this is brand new, out of the package. This is what it looks like. Di2A junction, it mounts inside this. So if I take this 2.5, the first thing that I can do is undo this cover right here. These are 2.5 bolts. And this Shimano A junction drops inside of there, and then this cover bolts down over the top for a really cool flush pro look. It's awesome, really cool. So we're going to put these screws back in with the A junction in place. Keep in mind, if you're running cables through this bar, the cables through your base bar are actually going to run in here. They're going to run through the center of the bar. So there's a little hole in here so you can have an access port to it from the bottom, but the cables will all be inside the bar and they'll drop down through the bottom hole here right into the frame. It's a really slick, clean look. So I'm going to stick this headset gap compression plug inside there. So there's two bolts in here. Inside there's a 6mm bolt, or inside there's a 5mm bolt, and on the top is a 6mm bolt. So I drop that in there, and once that's in fairly deep, what I want to do, so I want to back off this top spacer first. I want to drop this inside, and then I want to take my 5mm wrench. The first thing that I want to do is I want to tighten that 5mm wrench, and what that's doing is it's expanding that compression plug. And that's really important because it's providing external pressure on the carbon steer tube, the spot where I'm going to torque this down. So I don't want to torque these to 5.22 Newton meters until this compression plug is expanded. It's also really important that it expands the same place where you pinch. So once I have that down, then I can take my top one and I can press this down. Now, normally these side bolts are going to be a little bit looser, so as I tighten this, it'll compress the bearings on my steer tube. I'm not all the way down there because I didn't cut the steer tube on this bike because it's brand new, but once my headset is tight, then I can put the top cover on the bike. So I have the cover installed, and then boom, that is how my top cover of the plate looks. And again, this is a 2.5mm. It's got two little bolts that go up there. Okay, that's in. That's clean. That's what the bar looks like. So I still have quite a bit of tilt adjustment. If I want to take this cover off, I can do tilt adjustment again. I can pull out my BTA and I can install that. So we'll show you what that looks like. So again, this little guy is just going to mount on the bottom side of this, and it's going to provide space for a water ball to be mounted here. It's got a couple of offset spacers in here that you can install to make sure you get just the perfect fit. Okay, so if you want to install the BTA, you need to take this top bolt off and replace it with one of these longer ones. But the BTA will mount into that space, and then again up here. So this ovalized one goes into this cover. Set that down. And then this little offset spacer sits in here to provide a washer so this stays level. And now you have a BTA mounted between your aero bars. You can also use that as a computer mount, but it has spacing for your water bottles. So in a nutshell, that's it. Obviously your brake levers will be here, your shift extensions will be here, blip box, whatever you need. There's no internal space for the blip box. We did a really cool install on some of the new zip extensions that work wonderfully with this, that have the blip box integrated. But in a nutshell, that's what it looks like. If I actually want to adjust my tilt, what I need to do is remove the BTA and or the top cover, whatever you have installed. So you want to make sure that BTA is the last thing you have installed, just like we did it. And then you can take the top plate off so you don't lose any of those pieces. So once I have that plate removed, these two bolts on the side here, I can loosen them just a tiny bit, and that will allow the bar to drop down, level, tilt up. And wherever I hold this bar as I tighten it, I can adjust the tilt that way. So it's pretty cool. You can actually tilt down, you can tilt up. Nice little mechanism to get however much comfort you want, plus the extra tilt with the extensions. So there you have it in a nutshell. That is the Red Crown Cycling Monarch bar installed on a Dimond. Complete with the 51 speed shop extensions, the integrated Shimano junction box, a 65mm tower stack under the bars. That's the end of it. The right wrench here. This is TJ.